Sir, please start. Sir, please start.
Good morning, all of you. Okay, good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to this intermediate second year botany webinar sessions. As part of this webinar session, we are now dealing the unit 4 molecular biology, and that is chapter 10 molecular basis of inheritance. So as part of this, we already discussed about the structure of the DNA. We have a lot of discussion how this DNA is being identified as the genetic material. The search for genetic material was very fascinating because there are several molecules inside the cell, and out of all those molecules, which one was acting as the molecular material is very important. And we learned about those experiments, and finally they identified DNA as the genetic material, and we studied the structure of the DNA, later followed by the replication, RNA structure, RNA mechanisms, transcriptions, translation. So molecular biology is a very fascinating subject because the level of content is very high, but it should be studied at the very microscopic level. Srimati J.S. Seema, PGT Botany from TSMS Ramayampet, is taking us through this journey. It is a very complex journey, but she is very simplifying it and making all of us to understand in simplified terms. For this, I thank Srimati J.S. Seema Madam, and I thank the host Srimati Shailja Madam also for providing this platform. So now I request Srimati Seema Madam to begin our session. This is the final session in the molecular biology. Actually, after this, we will be having two more units, but we don't know whether we will be able to continue or not because physical classes are commencing soon. Anyhow, it is a wonderful journey. And I request J.S. Seema, who contributed a lot for both first year and second year, to present our session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to tell about molecular biology. Thank you, Shailja Madam, for giving me the classes and express my subject, whatever I learned in my PG, to our students. Thank you, Madam, and thank you, sir. So, children, good morning. Today, let us enter our remaining class, that is Molecular Biology Unit 4 and the Chapter 10, Molecular Basis of Inheritance. This is Part 3. It's nothing but like we are almost to the end of the topic. First of all, let us know what we have discussed in our earlier class. We discussed about RNA world. We discussed about the replication, that is semi-conservative method in DNA. And we discussed the Michelson and Stahl's experiment. That Michelson and Stahl's experiment will show us that yes, the DNA is a semi-conservative mode of replication, and the machinery and the enzymes, that is the replication fork, the transcription unit. And sir, can we stop the recording, sir? Sir? I want to stop the recording once, sir. Once, please, sir. A little bit of confusion.
Okay.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay.
2 minutes ante, sir.
Okay, me tension padakandi. Me video and audio off cheseyandi.
Yes, sir.
First year వాళ్ళకి లేదు ఇప్పుడు.
Sir, I can get back to the class now, sir, or shall we continue the class, sir?
You continue, we will edit.
Okay, sir. Actually, I got a call from my child. కొంచెం భయం అయింది, sir. అందుకే ఫోన్ ఆన్ చేశాను.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. She's fine, sir.
Okay. You continue, madam will edit.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, children, we have learned in the previous class about RNA world, the replication, that is semi-conservative method, and we also discussed about Michelson and Stahl's experiment. And we also discussed about transcription units, then the transcription gene, then types of RNAs and the process of transcription in bacteria, process of transcription in eukaryotes, and genetic code. Now, let us discuss about what are the topics we'll discuss today? We will discuss about mutations. We will discuss about tRNA, that is the adapter molecule, and we will discuss about Avery, MacLeod, McCarthy's experiment, and we'll also discuss Hershey and Chase, Michelson and Strauss. All these things we'll be discussing today. Now, let us enter into the major topic which we have discussed. First one is mutations. Now, what are mutations and what is genetic code? Genetic code, we discussed about it in the earlier class. So, what is that? What we discussed about mutations, what we discussed about genetic code. So genetic code is nothing but where the codes or the nitrogen bases are in the form of triplets, So these triplets are always in the form of 3 nitrogen bases. That is why we are calling it as triplets and they are called as genetic code. Now mutation, what do you mean by mutation? Mutation is nothing but sudden change in the genetic code that leads to the change in the amino acid sequence. First of all, children, we have to keep one thing in mind, that is amino acids will form together to form proteins. So if there are any changes in the sequence of these amino acids, there will be some change in the formation of the proteins. That means there will be an overall change in our genetic material also. So mutations are nothing but change in the genetic code that can lead to the changes in the amino acid sequence and ultimately to the overall shape of the proteins. Now, why these mutations are taking? Where you change in the single base will change the codon, usually into one or another form, like the sickle cell anemia. Disease is formed due to these mutations only. And children, this glutamic acid will also get converted to valine because of these mutations. So valine makes the hemoglobin sticky and it becomes, the precipitate will out of the solution will be very sticky. Now, next one. Let us know what is this. This is the thing which is present in our textbook. Ram has red cap. So Ram has red cap. What do you mean? What is there in this? Now, as I told you that the genetic code is in the form of triplets. So we'll take RAM as one triplet, HAS as one triplet, RED as one triplet, CAP as one triplet. Now, these are triplets, that is genetic codes. We have totally 1, 2, 3, 4 triplet codons. Now, in this, if we insert the letter B in between HAS, so HAS is the second triplet. We are inserting the letter B in between HAS and RED. So we have inserted this B. Now Ram has BRE because we have inserted B over here. So it becomes a triplet. BRE is becoming a triplet, whereas D gets shifted to the next triplet. So DCA becomes the next triplet and P is left over. That means there are triplet form has formed, but later on one is left alone. Similarly, if we now insert 2 letters at the same place, say B and I. Now it would be read as Ram has BIR because we have inserted BI over here. So you see here between this BRE, we have inserted BI. So when you insert BI, R is being shifted over here, E gets shifted to the next triplet, so it becomes EDC, and the A also gets shifted to the other side, that is AP. Now we insert 3 letters. So children, one thing you have to understand over here, when you are inserting 1 letter, a meaningful sentence is not formed. When you are inserting a second 2 letters, the information is also not complete. But now when we insert 3 letters together, like say BIG, that is Ram has BIG RED CAP. So Ram has big red cap. So children, what is that we have to convey over here is that when you are entering the triplets, then you are entering the alphabets in the form of triplets, a meaningful sentence has formed. If you are entering 1, if you are entering 2 letters, there is not a big meaningful sentence. Of course, they form the triplets, but there is no meaningful sentence. But when we have added 3, there is a meaningful sentence. Nothing but this is the concept of insertion into the frame. This RAM is the frame. HAS is the frame. RED is the frame. So we are doing the process of insertion in this frame. Now let us do deletion in this frame. The same exercise can be repeated by deleting the letters R, E, D one by one. So for example, we are having Ram has red cap over here. Ram has, we have deleted the letter R. So E, D, C, then the AP has been shifted. Next, we are deleting the word E also. Ram has D, C, A, P. That means we have eliminated or deleted E and R and E. Now we are deleting the word RED completely. So Ram has CAP because we have deleted the complete word ED. That means here we are doing the process of deletion. In the first part, we have done the process of insertion. In the next, that is the over here, we have done the process of deletion. So in this frame, we are following frame shift mutation. In frame shift mutation, insertion and deletion of the triplet codes will take place. So we'll see the next, that is, this is gene mutations. That is, in gene mutations also, we are talking about frame shift mutation. In frame shift mutation, we are having insertion, deletion. Now in an insertion, an extra base is inserted as we have seen till now. The loss of single letter shows deletion. So this is what frame shift mutation. That one triplet code is nothing but the frame shift mutation. And we have insertion and deletion in that. We have seen the example because that example is present in our textbook, children. So you can go through our textbook, the same example. That is Ram has red cap. That is Ram has red cap. This entire topic is present in our textbook. You can go through it so that you can understand frame shift mutation. And in frame shift mutation also, we are having insertion and deletion. Next, tRNA, the adapter molecule. So children, what is this tRNA? Who has discovered this tRNA? Means tRNA is called as the adapter molecule and it was discovered by Crick. tRNA is an adapter molecule. It helps in transferring amino acids to ribosomes. Now you should get a question in your mind. Ribosomes means where are these ribosomes present? Ribosomes are present in the cell. In the cell, that is in the cytoplasm region. So in the cytoplasm region, ribosomes are present. If you go back to your earlier 9th class, we study over there the cell organelles. In that cell organelles, we discuss that ribosomes will help in the synthesis of proteins. Ribosomes will help in the synthesis of proteins. We also discussed in ribosomes, we have small subunit, large subunit. We discussed those all. So now come back to the tRNA, that is the adapter molecule. tRNA was discovered by Crick and it is also called as the adapter molecule because transferring of the amino acids to ribosomes, this transfer occurs for the synthesis of polypeptides or proteins. So simply, we can just tell that tRNA will help in transferring the amino acids to ribosomes. Why it should be done? For the synthesis of proteins. So we can say that transfer of the amino acids to ribosomes for synthesis of proteins. Now, it has anticodon, it has what you say, the complementary bases. See, actually children, this is the image which is present in our textbook. But let us have a detailed view of this tRNA adapter molecule. So this tRNA, you can see this is the nice, beautiful image where you can understand the entire structure of DNA. So now you should get a thought. The image which you are able to see is having 2 strands. But children, this is not 2 strands. tRNA is a single stranded molecule. How can you say? Because you can see 5' end over here, 3' end over here. Yes, that means it is one single strand of RNA. But the single strand of RNA has undergone a number of foldings. Why is that undergone foldings? Because it should form nitrogen bases. So that is why this filament, the single strand has undergone foldings to form the nitrogen bases. As you can see, guanine pairing with cytosine, adenine pairing with uracil. As we all discussed later or long back also children, if we are talking about RNA molecule, then adenine will always pair with uracil. If we are talking about the DNA, adenine will always pair with thymine. So it is clear that we are talking about tRNA only. Now, it is a single-stranded molecule, but it is undergoing a lot of foldings because of nitrogen base pairing. Now, in this also, we have some loops. First of all, children, this is the part where amino acid is attached over here. This red color structure which you see is nothing but the amino acid which is attached over here. Now, this has another layer that is called as the anticodon loop. This basal part is nothing but the anticodon loop. Now, what is this anticodon loop? Anticodon loop that has bases complementary to the what you say codes which are present at the acceptor end. It binds to amino acids. So this anticodon loop has complementary codes. Anticodon loop has complementary codes. There are different tRNAs for different amino acids. You should keep that one thing in mind. tRNAs play a specific role, places amino acids at particular point during protein synthesis. So we'll see what are those all things. Now, in this image also, you can see that this is the part where the amino acid gets attached. This is the loop which is called as the T loop. This is called as the T loop. This T loop, what will this T loop do? And this T loop will recognize the ribosomes. This T loop will recognize the ribosomes. What is this D loop? This D loop will recognize which amino acid is there. This is nothing but the D loop. It will identify the type of amino acids. So now, so tRNA, the adapter molecule, it is having mainly the 3' end and 5' end. And children, I just want to tell you one more thing. At this 3' end, we have ACC codes. ACC codes. At this ACC codes, amino acids get attached. So this at 3' end, we have ACC codes, and this ACC code will help in the attachment of amino acids. Next, we have the T loop. This T loop helps in the recognizing of ribosomes. This anticodons will have anticodons which help in complementing them with the mRNA which will be present at the base. This D loop helps in the identification of the amino acid which is getting attached. Now, this is the image which is present in our textbook, that is translation process. Children, let us have a little bit clear-cut image of translation, because in the textbook they have given only this image, but we cannot understand that even in translation, initiation, elongation and termination, these all steps are going on. So this gives only the process of translation, but the steps are not clear. So let us know what are all the steps. First of all, let us know what is the enzyme which helps in the translation process. So we are telling this as tRNA activation. We have to activate the tRNA. Why we have to activate the tRNA? Because we talked about tRNA that it will help in binding the amino acid. So now the tRNA binded with amino acid is necessary for the translation process. Now let us know what is this tRNA activation. Enzyme amino acyl tRNA synthetase. So what is the enzyme over here? Amino acyl tRNA synthetase. Now to this amino acyl tRNA synthetase, first what happens? An amino acid gets attached over here. Then after that, what is happening? Catalyzes covalent joining of the amino acid to tRNA. The tRNA gets joined to the amino acyl tRNA synthetase. Now tRNA plus amino acid is nothing but amino acyl tRNA. Amino acyl tRNA. This amino acyl tRNA is necessary for our translation process. So children, just keep one thing in mind, that amino acyl tRNA synthetase, it will take up both. What it is taking up? It is taking up the amino acid and it is taking up the energy also. So that what is formed? Amino acyl tRNA. Now, they have 20 different tRNAs. tRNA molecule is reactivated many times. Okay. But what is that you have to understand in this slide is that amino acyl tRNA synthetase has to accept this amino acid, then energy, then later on it has to form amino acyl tRNA, which is useful for the translation process. Now, this is the brief picture which gives us the idea how the translation process is taking place. So this is the image where the amino acid is attached to the tRNA, that is the transfer RNA. So you can see over here UAC codon. This is the anti-codon. So UAC anti-codon. Now what means these are the things which are needed for our translation process. So first we need the tRNA that is carrying the amino acid. And children, if you remember the structure of ribosome, we are having two subunits. One is the small subunit and one is the large subunit. So these subunits, nothing but the ribosome is used for the process of translation. So this tRNA with amino acid and the ribosome is used for the translation. They undergo the translation process. So first step is initiation. During initiation, the components of the translation apparatus come together with an mRNA and tRNA carrying the first amino acid that is binds to the start codon. So children, let us see this over here. Yeah. So you can see that. You can see over here, during initiation, the components of the translation apparatus come together with an mRNA and a tRNA. You can see over here, this is our tRNA, which is getting along with the amino acid, binds with the AUG, nothing but the start codon. This is the start codon. And as you can see, the amino acid with the tRNA is attached to the mRNA. Children, you can see this pink color line. This line is nothing but the mRNA strand, 5' to 3' end. So this is the mRNA strand. The tRNA with amino acid gets embedded to this mRNA. But what is happening first? First, the small subunit gets attached to the mRNA. Then the tRNA with amino acid will get embedded to the mRNA, that is at the AUG start codon. Then the larger subunit gets attached to the smaller subunit. This process is nothing but initiation process. Next, elongation process takes place. During elongation, what is happening during elongation? During elongation, amino acids are brought to the mRNA by tRNAs and are added one by one to the growing polypeptide chain. So you can see this tRNA is bringing amino acids. In the first part, only one amino acid was there, but during the elongation process, the number of amino acids has increased. That means the process is getting elongated. That means the amino acids are being brought to the tRNA, are brought to the ribosome through this tRNA. For example, if ribosome is the center, then tRNA is acting like a vehicle to bring the amino acids. So the amino acids are brought to the ribosome through this tRNA, and where are they placed? They are placed on the mRNA. Now, what is happening? During this process, the tRNA will shift its position towards the 5' end, towards this, during this process of translation, the amino acids will shift towards the 3' end because the process is starting at 5' end. So the termination, that is elongation process will move, that is it is moving towards the 3' end. During the process of movement, the tRNA will get removed from the ribosome. Now let us know what is the third step. Third step is termination. During termination, a stop codon in the mRNA is recognized by a protein release factor and the translation apparatus comes apart, releasing a completed polypeptide. So children, just remember that there is a factor which is called as protein release factor. So keep it in mind, the release factor, that is protein release factor, will help in terminating the translation process. So when you see over here, the ribosome from the 5' end got shifted to the 3' end, and at the 3' end, a protein release factor has attached to the ribosome. As a result, the process of translation comes to a stop or comes to a halt, because at this release factor, stop codon is present, that is UAG. once the stop codon, once the ribosome reach the stop codon, the process of translation will come to a halt, come to a stop. So after that, the proteins are released into the cell and the ribosomes go back to the cytoplasm and they perform the normal functions. So this is the process of translation. So children, please keep it in mind, the process of translation. Regulation of gene. So let us know why the gene has to regulate. The gene has to show regulation because we as human beings, we consume a lot of food. And for example, if you take lot of rice or lot of sweets, what happens in the body? A lot of the level of sugar will increase in our body. And the regulation of gene has to act over there so that it will trigger the gene related to insulin that yes, the sugar levels are getting more, so you have to start your function. So regulation of gene is important in our body. Just the presence of gene is not important. Regulation of the gene is important. If the genes are getting regulated at a correct interval of times, the normal functioning of the human will take place. Otherwise, there will be some health issues. There will be some imbalance in the body. Now, this is a very small, minute topic in your textbook to understand. There is not much what is a concept based regarding the exams. So just to know what is regulation of gene, we have to read this. So gene regulation, what does it do? It helps in transcription. We have discussed in our yesterday's class. Transcription means that is we are forming mRNA. That means we are doing a base or we are doing a ground plan for the formation of the mRNA, because this mRNA will help in protein synthesis, transcription factors. Then post-transcription, that is mRNA processing. We have to take care that the mRNA should be formed and mRNA processing also should take place. This is nothing but, if we go back to our class, we were talking about capping. We have added guanine adenosine triphosphate to the 5' end. That is nothing but the capping. So why are we doing all those things? And that is nothing but we are helping or we are working in the production of the mRNA. Now translation, which we discussed right just now. What is happening in translation? Nothing but the ribosomes present in the cytoplasm and the tRNA will work together so that the proteins are formed for the development of our body, because we know proteins are the building blocks. Next, protein processing, protein degradation. The protein should perform its process and it should help in the development of the body, and also the protein should get degraded. So all these functions are nothing but regulation of gene. If you see the image over here, this 1 and 2, transcription process, that is whatever we discussed yesterday. Over here, you can see this green line, that is the nascent mRNA. On this mRNA, we are having the introns and exons. I told you introns and exons will get exited, introns will be present, then mRNA splicing, then mRNA protection. Whatever mRNA is formed, it has to be protected, because if mRNA is protected, then only the mRNA will undergo the processing and it will lead to the translation process. Just now, this is the image of translation. And if translation is taking place, then it will help in protein processing and it also undergo protein degradation. This is the regulation of gene. Now, lac operon. So children, this is another major important concept which is in our textbook. Of course, this is not present in our syllabus, but if you are going for some competitive exams, this lac operon concept is very important. So let us go through this lac operon. What is lac operon? You can see over here, lac operon, lactose. In lac operon, lactose is added and enzymes are formed. Lactose is added and enzymes are formed. It is also called inducible operon system. So keep it in mind, lac operon is also called as inducible operon system. Now, many things are present in lac operon. As you can see the image over here, it is having many things. Let us know about the each and every segment which is present in the image. Excuse me. Firstly, we are having structural genes. What are structural genes? The structural genes which you can see over here, that is the LAC-Z, LAC-Y and LAC-A. These are the structural genes. Children, you have LAC-Z. will code for beta galactosidase. LAC Z will code for beta galactosidase. LAC Y will code for permease. LAC A will code for trans-acetylase. So first of all, children, we have three structural genes, Z, Y, A. Z will code for beta galactosidase. Y will code for permease, and A will code for trans-acetylase. Next gene is the operator gene. Next gene is the operator gene. This operator gene interact with the protein and it stops the transcription. So children, have a brief clear-cut idea. This is O is nothing but the operator gene. This P is nothing but the protein. So the operator gene will combine or interact with the protein and it stops the transcription process. Next is the promoter. Next is the promoter. So this is the promoter gene. So this promoter gene, RNA polymerase will bind to the promoter gene. And what is happening? RNA polymerase bind with the promoter gene. So once again, I will just quickly tell you what is this O. O is the operator gene. Operator gene interact with the protein and it will stop the process of transcription. This P is the promoter gene. RNA polymerase bind with the promoter gene. Now regulator gene. What is the regulator gene? This I is the regulator gene. So children, you might get confused. What is this P? What is this P? So this P is the, what you say, protein, whereas the first P is the promoter gene. I is nothing but the regulator gene. Gene regulation occurs in regulator gene. So in I, what happens? Regulator gene is present and regulation of gene codes for the repressor protein. As you can see over here, regulation of gene for the repressor protein will take place. Now, when the repressor protein and operator gene, that is when the repressor protein and the operator gene meet each other, what is happening? Repressor will bind to the operator gene and prevents the mRNA from transcribing the operon. So this LAC operon will not transcribe. How will it not transcribe? This repressor binds with the operator gene and prevents the mRNA from transcribing the operon. So the operon system gets switched off. This operon system will get switched off when the repressor protein will bind with the operator gene. The LAC operon system will get switched off. When the inducer, you can see over here, this is the inducer protein. When the inducer protein will meet the repressor protein, it inactivates the repressor protein. This inducer protein will meet the repressor protein, it inactivates the repressor protein. The inducer is lactose. Now you must tell, madam, this inducing protein is combining with the operator gene, then the LAC operon will get off. It should get on. How it will get on? This inducer will get combined with the repressor protein, and the inducer over here is the LAC, that is the lactose. So the inducer lactose will combine with the repressor. As a result, the operon will get switched on. So keep it in mind, inducer combining with the lactose, the operon will be switched on. Inducer combining with the repressor along with the operator gene, the operon will be switched off. This is the point which you have to understand over here. Now, children, we have discussed about central dogma in our previous classes. Let us know what is the central dogma, because this gives the major idea about this molecular biology. As the image is so nice here that this is the structure of DNA, then this is RNA, and this is proteins. This DNA to RNA is the transcription. RNA to proteins is the translation. Now, first let us understand central dogma is nothing but the flow of genetic information from genes to proteins through successive biochemical changes or successive biochemical steps is nothing but what you say, central dogma. So transfer or flow of genetic information from genes to the proteins. That means genes are present on the DNA. If you remember, genes are present on the DNA segment. So the information flows from genes to the proteins. That means it is a very long process because it has to undergo some steps. The genes have to undergo some steps to reach the proteins. What are those steps? The DNA has the power to make its own copy. As you can see the arrow mark. From the DNA, the arrow mark is going back to the DNA, telling that this is undergoing self-replication. This DNA is undergoing self-replication and forming DNA only. So first, the DNA has to undergo self-replication and form the DNA. Then this DNA will form mRNA, that is the transcription process. And from the mRNA, it undergoes translation process to proteins. That means the proteins which has to form from DNA is a very lengthy process because DNA has to self-replicate and form the DNA. It has to undergo transcription to form the mRNA, and from the mRNA, it has to undergo translation to form the proteins. It is a very lengthy process. But finally, the proteins are formed will depend upon the sequence of the DNA strand. Nothing but the quality of the proteins, whether it is the good or the normal proteins, will depend upon the quality of the DNA strand. Now, what kind of proteins formed will depend upon the sequence on the DNA strands. Proteins formed will depend upon the type of amino acids, because we know proteins are made up of amino acids. The protein's quality will depend upon the type of amino acids formed. What kind of amino acids formed will depend upon the RNA, that is the codons present in the RNA. What kind of codons present in the RNA will depend upon the nucleotide sequence of the DNA. So in this way, this is a directly or indirectly connected sequence. Genes present in the DNA flow to the proteins, flow towards the proteins. They help in the formation of the proteins. Next is our Griffith's experiment. So children, if you remember, we have discussed Griffith's experiment. We call it as transforming principle. This question most probably comes for 4 marks in our exams. And this Griffith's experiment was the first experiment conducted by Mr. Griffith, the scientist Griffith. We call it as transforming principle. So as a question, they may ask you in our board exam, write about the transforming principle or write about the Griffith's experiment. So first of all, keep it in your mind, Griffith's experiment is nothing but transforming principle. Transforming principle is nothing but Griffith's experiment. Okay. So what is happening in this Griffith's experiment? In this Griffith's experiment, Griffith has taken pneumonia, that is Streptococcus pneumonia, that is they used it for his experiments. He used Streptococcus pneumonia and he used mice or mouse for his experiments. What did he do? He first observed that the Streptococcus pneumonia has 2 strains, that is the S strain and the R strain. S strain is called as the virulent strain, R strain is called as non-virulent strain. S strain virulent means it is causing the disease pneumonia. R strain means it is not causing the pneumonia. S means what? Smooth. R means what? Rough. Why is this S? Why is this R? S is having a capsule around itself. S is having a capsule. So it is smooth. R is not having the capsule, polysaccharide capsule. We call it as a polysaccharide capsule. So Griffith, what he did was he took the S strain of pneumonia and injected into the mouse. The mouse died. He took the R strain, he injected into the mouse. The mouse was healthy. So he understood that there was something which is present in the S strain. That is the reason the mouse died. What did he do? I will heat kill the S strain bacteria. So he heat killed the S strain bacteria. He took it into the another beaker and he injected that heat killed S strain into the mouse. The mouse was healthy. That means here 2 chances the mouse is healthy. One is the R strain, one is the heat killed S strain. But the death case occurred in S strain, living S strain. So what did he do was, he took both the good things. That is, he took the living R strain and he took the heat kill S strain, thinking that if I mix both of them and insert into the mouse, will it live or die? That was his question. So he did the same process. He took the heat killed S strain and he took the living R strain, combined them over here and he injected into the mouse, and for his surprise, the mouse was dead. The mouse was dead. Now, what was his conclusion? Griffith concluded that the live R, that is, this R is the live. This R is the live substance. This live R must have transformed the heat-killed S strain into live S strain, or they must have transformed something in S, which resulted in the formation of smooth variety of bacteria. He was confused. Griffith was confused for which reason the mouse has died. He was thinking that maybe this R strain has transformed into heat-killed S strain, but actually he was not clear what happened. So scientists were not able to convince that DNA is the genetic material. But children, this Griffith's experiment is very important because this is the first experiment conducted to know that DNA is the genetic material. So the chemical substance from one cell is capable of genetically transforming into another cell. That point was confirmed. So next one, this is only a brief picture to show you the transforming principle. As you can see, the rough strain is non-virulent, smooth strain is virulent. When you're injecting the rough strain, the mouse is live. Smooth strain, the mouse is died. Heat-killed smooth strain, the mouse is alive. When you're mixing both the strains, the mouse dies. Now, this is the conclusion which we discussed in our earlier class also, that Frederick Griffith concluded that R strain bacteria had somehow been transformed by the heat-killed S strain bacteria. Some transforming principle transformed from the heat-killed S strain enabled the R strain to synthesize a smooth polysaccharide coat and become virulent. However, biochemical nature of the genetic material was not defined. Confirmly, this is the genetic material. Scientists were not able to say that. Next, after 16 years of Griffith's experiment, three scientists, Oswald Avery, Colin MacLeod, and Macklin McCarty. In simple, in our textbook, we usually call it as Avery, MacLeod, and McCarty experiment. So these three scientists worked on the Griffith's experiment, and they concluded that yes, genetic and material is DNA. So they performed. What is the hypothesis? The genetic material of the cell is either protein or nucleic acids. So before conducting this experiment, Avery, MacLeod, and McCarty, they three were also in a confusing state because, as you can see, they thought genetic material of cell is either protein or DNA or RNA. So they were also confused. Now they want to confirm which one is the genetic material. Is it the protein? Is it the RNA? Or is it the DNA? So they have studied back. What did they do? The Avery, MacLeod, McCarty, they have done the Griffith experiment. How? One day they have taken the S strain and the R strain. They have, that is heat-killed S strain. They have taken heat-killed S strain and they have taken the R strain. They have injected into the mice. The mice died. Then they have taken the substances from that dead mice and they have collected it in the test tube. They have collected this in the test tube. And what did they do? They did the further studies. How? First of all, they removed the lipids, they removed the sugars. After that, what are left over in the solution? Proteins, RNA, and DNA. One by one, they were experimenting whether protein is present, whether RNA is present, or whether DNA is present. So we'll see here, he has taken, that means the three scientists have taken the heat-killed S strain, extracted the substances, that is lipids and sugars from them. The substances left over in the in this test tube were proteins, RNA, and DNA. Now he has divided this into 3 test tubes. The solution being divided into 3 test tubes. In the first experiment, what did he do? He added proteinase. When you add proteinase, the protein substance will get dissolved. The protein substances will get removed. So only 2 substances are present in this, DNA and RNA. Now the major concept over here is when this substance is consisting of only in DNA and RNA, he poured that solution into the conical flask. Into this conical flask, he added the live R cells. By now the R cells, they observed that the transformation occurred. What transformation occurred? In the solution, some substance of this heat-killed SSL is present. This substance has transferred the R cell into the what you say, S cell. Substance has transformed the R cell into S cell. Actually, there is no cocci, there is no pneumonia bacteria, but the internal material, this yellow color is nothing but the internal chemical material present. That chemical material transferred this R cell into S cell. That means there is something, either DNA or RNA, because we removed proteins over here. Now, again in the second test tube, what did he do? He add RNA. When you add RNAs, RNA will be removed. So what is present? Protein is present and DNA is present. No RNA, because we have removed RNA over here. And what for his surprise, the R cells again got transferred to S cells. That means the protein do not act as genetic material. RNA do not act as genetic material. Third test tube, he added DNAs. That means in this no DNA is present. DNA is out of the flask. But in this proteins are present and RNA is present. And the R cells were like duct only. They did not get converted to S cells. That means if DNA is present, then only R cells are getting converted to S cells. So DNA is the main, what you say, element converting the R cells into the S cells. So he finally confirmed, these all three scientists confirmed that it is not the protein, it is not the RNA, but it is the DNA which is acting as the genetic material. Now, Hershey and Chase experiment. So children, Hershey and Chase experiments, these are the experiments he used. He also wanted to prove that DNA is the genetic material. He used two things, E. coli bacteria and bacteriophages. What is happening? We'll just go through the experiment. So this is the image which is present in our textbook. So what is happening over here? The genetic material is DNA, and Hershey and Martha Chase proved this experiment. What did they do was, as this is the process, that is Hershey and Chase grew some bacteria in two mediums. That is one bacteriophage in the sulfur medium, one bacteriophage in the phosphor medium. Keep it in mind, proteins are absorbed. Proteins absorb sulfur. Genetic material will absorb the phosphorus. That is why the protein coat is, that is why sulfur is seen in the protein coat. That is the outer layer. It becomes red. Then the, what you say, radioactivity. The DNA, that is genetic material, is absorbing the phosphorus. So you can see red in color. That means, please be clear, sulfur, whatever bacteriophage is grown in sulfur are protein rich. Whatever bacteriophage is grown in the phosphorus are genetic material. Okay, so now when you see over here, that is the radioactive sulfur, while some other bacteriophages are grown in the medium containing radioactive phosphorus. The bacteriophages grown in radioactive sulfur, contained radioactive protein, while the bacteria grown in the radioactive phosphorus contain radioactive DNA. As you can see, the DNA is red color, the coat, outer protein coat is red color. These bacteriophages are allowed to infect the individual bacterial cells respectively. This process is nothing but infection stage. Now, after infection, it won't be quiet. It will enter its DNA into the E. coli cell. So as the infection proceeds, the viral coats were removed from the bacterial surface by the process called as blending. After blending, few virus particles which were left on the surface of the bacterial cell were removed by the process of centrifugation. After centrifugation, the bacterial cells contain only the genetic material of the virus. Now in centrifugation tube, the particles which are heavier in the weight lie at the bottom of the tube, and whereas the particles which are lighter in the weight lie at the top of the centrifugation tube and are called as supernatant. So what is in the first case? Briefly, we'll just go through what is happening in the first case. Bacteriophages grown in the radioactive sulfur was found to be no radioactivity was detected in bacterial cell, but radioactivity was detected in the supernatant region. That means the genetic material has entered from the bacteriophage was radioactive, leading to the conclusion that proteins are not genetic material. But in the later case, that is in the phosphorus case, that is in centrifugation tube, radioactivity was detected in the bacterial cell, and whereas the radioactivity was detected in supernatant region. Since radioactivity is detected in bacterial cell, that means it was DNA which got transferred from bacteriophage into the what you say, bacterial cell. Hence, DNA is nothing but the genetic material as per Hershey and Chase experiment. This is the small experiment to explain about the centrifugation process about this Hershey and Chase only. You can see this is the pellet stage. The upper stage is nothing but the supernatant stage. This is radioactivity in liquid, radioactivity in pellet stage. Michelson and Stahl's experiment. This experiment we discussed yesterday only regarding this Michelson and Stahl's experiment. What is happening over here? We'll just go through it. Michelson and Stahl, they worked on E. coli bacteria, that is ammonium chloride food. They used ammonium chloride to grow the E. coli bacteria. So to separate heavy isotope from, sorry, I'm very sorry. Here we are using ammonium chloride as the food for E. coli bacteria. But the ammonium chloride which we are using is heavy isotope of nitrogen, nothing but we call it as N15. Whereas N14 is the normal light isotope. So first we are growing the E. coli bacteria in the heavy isotope NH4Cl. So E. coli is grown in N15 NH4Cl. It grows in this medium for few generations, so that they feed and divide for around some few generations. They found that all the DNA of the E. coli became embedded with N15 isotope. How can you tell that yes, the E. coli is having N15 isotope? Because when you are doing density gradient centrifugation, you can see in the test tube, at the base of the test tube, what color DNA is present? The blue color DNA is present. That means density means it is at the bottom. That means it is heavy. That means 15N nitrogen is present, and all the DNA is embedded with N15 nitrogen only. Then what did they do? They shifted this N15 DNA into the NH4Cl light medium. So they were getting NH4Cl, that is light nitrogen, as food material. They allowed it to grow for some time. That is, for one generation, it takes 20 minutes of time. So when they performed the density gradient centrifugation, they found that the tube, the experiment was found to be in the middle of the test tube. That means half of the DNA was from the N15, whereas half of the DNA was from the N14. So it gave the hybrid segment because it is having two segments, N14 and N15. So we are calling it as a hybrid segment. Then this was allowed to generate for another 20 minutes, nearly 40 minutes. We observed that two strands were formed. What are those two strands? One was purely red color. That means some DNA were formed purely N14 type of DNA. But again, in the middle, hybrid DNA also was formed, showing that the DNA has been converted to N15, but even the parental DNA has been resumed. That is why when you see over here after the last step, the two strands of the N14 DNA, whereas two strands are consisting of the N15 and N14 hybrid DNA are formed, showing that semi-conservation of the genetic material is done over here. The pattern could only have been observed if each DNA molecule contains a template strand from the parental strand. Thus, DNA replication is a semi-conservative mode. Nothing but they want to explain you that when the genetic material from the parent is being transferred to the daughter cells, half of the genetic material is divided into the daughter cells. Now, Michelson and Stahl's experiment this is the experiment we discussed. This is the image which is present in your textbook only, children. N15 DNA, when it is undergoing 20 minutes of division, hybrid DNA, this is. So you have two strands. When this is kept for division for another 20 minutes, that is 40 minutes, four strands are formed. N14 strand, N14 strand, whereas N15, N14, these are nothing but the hybrid strands. Packaging of DNA helix. Children, this is again one more important point in our exam point of view. Packaging of DNA helix. Why we should pack the DNA helix? Is DNA helix a small thread-like structure? No. DNA helix is a very long structure. DNA structure is a very long one. But we have discussed in our earlier classes that the length of the DNA is so big that it has to undergo some foldings, or it should get condensed so that it will be placed in the nucleus. Because this DNA is present in the chromosomes. Where are these chromosomes present? These are present in the nucleus. Where is the nucleus present? It is present in the cell. So you can imagine how the DNA has to get condensed to undergo the heredity process. Now, the length of the DNA is around 3 meters that we need to accommodate within the nucleus, which is only a few micrometers in diameter. In order to fit the DNA molecule into the nucleus, it needs to be packed into an compressed and a very small and compact structure called chromatin. Now, we have discussed about this in our previous classes. What are these? So children, these are nothing but histones. These are nothing but histones. What are these histones? Each nucleosome has a histone, that is H2A, H2B, H3, H4. But each histone is having its another double one. So they form totally 8 histones. We are calling them as octamers. So H2, all of them are 2 in number. Now, the DNA strand, this is the pink strand which is wrapped around them. It is nothing but the DNA strand. So these are the histone proteins, and these are surrounded by the DNA strand. So this is nothing but the structure of the nucleosome. As you can imagine, this is the nucleosome, that is the octamer. This is surrounded by the DNA segment. Now, this is the image which is present in our textbook, and when this question comes, you have to write mainly 5 points. What are they? Nucleosome is a bead-like structure. It consists of 8 histones, that is 8 molecules of DNA segment of about 150 base pairs, and each nucleosome is separated by histone, that is H1 histone. We call this H1 histone as linker DNA. Otherwise, the length of the chromosomes when linear is greater than the diameter of the nucleus. Next is transcription in bacteria. Very quickly, let us understand what is happening in this transcription in bacteria. Nothing but prokaryotes. So children, when you are seeing this, you have to understand mainly that transcription is nothing but the formation of the RNA from the DNA. Copying of the RNA from DNA is known as transcription. For transcription, the enzymes required are DNA dependent RNA polymerase. This is the first important thing which you have to remember. The process of different in prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Now let us go into the bacteria, nothing but the prokaryotes. This is our DNA, and we have 2 polynucleoid strands, and this is the double helical structure. As we discussed in transcription unit, first we have the promoter site, then we have the terminator region, that is at the end, and between the promoter and the terminator, we have the structural gene. The name of the enzyme which facilitates the transcription in prokaryotes is DNA dependent RNA polymerase. Now this enzyme will utilize, that is this RNA enzyme polymerase will utilize nucleoside triphosphate as its substrate. RNA polymerase will consist of the sigma factor. The sigma factor has an important role. What will this do? The sigma factor will initiate the process of transcription. It identifies and enters the polymerase, the RNA polymerase into the promoter region. Finally, sigma factor identifies the promoter and it starts initiating the transcription process. That is why we are calling this as transcription start site. So this is the first step, that is the process got initiated. Now the RNA polymerase has entered into the DNA strand. Now the polymerase enters the double helical structure. It cuts the DNA bonds. These are the hydrogen bonds. This DNA polymerase will cut the hydrogen bonds which are bind between the 2 polynucleotide chains. So who is doing? RNA polymerase enzyme. This RNA polymerase enzyme present in double strand helical structure as a result of the breaking of the hydrogen bonds. Now the sigma factor is present in polymerase? No. You can see in the image sigma factor is outside the polymerase. Now this RNA polymerase, it moves towards the 3' end. The direction of transcription in bacteria is from 5' end to 3' end. Whenever it moves from 3' to 5' direction, it breaks the hydrogen bonds present between the polynucleotide. And we know that strand which runs 3' to 5' is known as the template strand. 3' to 5' strand is known as the template strand. Now, the template strand, this helps in the formation of the mRNA. Very important, children. The template strand will help in the formation of the mRNA. This yellow strand which you are seeing is nothing but the mRNA. Now RNA is forming from the template strand. The newly formed RNA shows 5' to 3' and that we can discuss now in the later class. So this process is going on until it reaches the terminator region. See, promoter is promoting the transcription, terminator is ending the transcription. Termination means stop. So the process is going until it reaches the terminator site. Terminator region terminates the process of transcription. Wherever the terminator region is present, it will stop automatically. The enzyme, that is the RNA polymerase, will come out of the DNA. Sorry. The RNA polymerase will come out of the DNA, and when the RNA polymerase will come out of the DNA, one another factor which is called as the Rho factor, which help in the process of termination, is present. After that, when the RNA polymerase comes out because of the Rho factor, the RNA will get released from the DNA strand, and the DNA will again come back. That is, the hydrogen bonding will take place, and the double-stranded structure will continue as usual. Now, let us discuss the transcription in eukaryotes. This is also a very simple process, just like the transcription in prokaryotes. The RNA polymerase, as usual, initiate the process of transcription, and which is the first step, whereas the second step is elongation, and the third step is termination. It means wherever terminator region is present, the process of transcription will stop. Now, during this process, what is terminated ante hnRNA, heterogeneous nuclear RNA is released. When you can see here, this long M, this is the heterogeneous nuclear RNA, hnRNA. So this hnRNA contains 5' to 3' end, and this undergoes processing. This is the mRNA. This is 5' to 3' end, and this undergoes the processing. And towards the 5' end, there will be adding methyl guanosine triphosphate, MGPPP, methyl guanosine triphosphate, and this process is called as capping. And towards the 3' end, there will be adding adenylate residues. As you can see, 3' end adenylate residue is added, and the 3' end, the process is known as tailing. So at the 5' end, capping, that is methyl guanosine triphosphate. At the 3' end, polyadenylate is added, and this is nothing but tailing. After this tailing, capping, there is a process which is called as splicing. Splicing is nothing but breaking. While splicing occurs, it occurs because the hnRNA, children, this is the hnRNA. It is consisting of two types of sequences, exons and introns. Yellow ones are exons, the pinkish color ones are introns. So they are, exons are non-coding region. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Exons are coding region, introns are non-coding region. Presence of introns and exons in the RNA make it hnRNA. So this hnRNA undergoes splicing, and in this splicing process, exons are present, whereas introns are removed and exons are joined together. Once again, I'll just go through this point. That is, in the splicing process, introns are removed, exons are joined together. How are they joined together? By RNA ligase. So after splicing, we can see that a complete mature mRNA is formed. Now, we will recapitulate this overall process, that is RNA capping, where the 5' end gets attached to this methyl guanosine triphosphate. Splicing, we have removing the introns. Adenylation, we are adding the adenylate group, that is tailing. So capping, splicing, and tailing. This is the overall process of the, transcription. So children, till now we have discussed about so many topics. Let us know what are the questions which are present in our textbook. There are many questions which are present. If you go through our previous classes also, I have mentioned the important questions which are present at the end of the class. That is, today I'm going to explain mainly the 4-mark questions. That is, transformation in Griffith's experiment. Discuss how it helps in the identification of DNA as genetic material. If they just give the question, define or explain transforming principle, that is also Griffith's experiment only. Even Griffith's experiment is nothing but transforming principle only. You have to write about that. Discuss the significance of heavy isotope of nitrogen in Michelson and Stahl's experiment, which we have discussed. We are using both the isotopes of nitrogen, that is N14 and N15, that experiment. How many type of RNA polymerase exist in the cell? Write their names and functions. Children, this polymerase answer you can find near the transcription in eukaryotes. Textbook, very clear answer is there. draw the schematic and diagrammatic representation of lac operon. We have discussed about lac operon, but it is not in our exam point of view, so I didn't mention the marks. But for any competitive exams, it will be very useful. Differences between DNA and RNA, very frequently asked question in our exams. Important features of genetic code. Children, genetic code important features we have discussed in the earlier class, that is the salient features of genetic code. Very frequently discussed questions is salient features of genetic code, where we tell about the triplet codon. They are non-overlapping, they are very stable. There is nice 6 points of genetic code, salient features of genetic code answer. Then even nucleosome answer is also very frequently asked question, where we talked about the octamers, nothing but the 8 histone proteins, DNA circled around that. So these are the important questions which I have discussed little bit now. But when you refer the questions present at the back of your textbook, all the answers are present in the textbook only. If you read the lesson completely, you find all the answers. So with this, we come to the end of our topic. Hope you all understood the topic very clearly. Thank you so much. Sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for discussing about all the aspects of DNA, RNA, the genetic code, its various features, nucleosomes, and Griffith's experiments in detail. Thank you very much. I hope this session is very elaborative and clear. Children, please revisit this session, make your own notes, and at the end you have various questions, and madam also has given you various questions. So please prepare your own answers for these questions and practice. This will give you more scope, a widened scope about these various aspects for your further study also.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.